The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Chris Ballman, and I'm here to offer you some tips and guidance as you finalize your slide deck and presentation. To start, let's go over some general attendee facts to consider as you put the finishing touches on your presentation. We asked all attendees at the last few conferences what best describes your company. As you can see, 67% of attendees are building service contractors. That's followed by 23% are franchisor or franchisees. In regards to the services that they provide, it's a pretty broad range. However, 88%, almost a majority, are in commercial services. But you also notice that industrial, schools, and hospitals and healthcare have a very significant presence as well. Knowing this information will help you craft your message to reach the audience and their needs. Now that we understand a little bit more about our audience, let's move next to the learning objectives. Learning objectives are important. They tell the attendee what they can expect to take away from your session. So it's important that you have strong objectives telling the attendee what's in it for them. One of the basic tenets of adult learning is called WIFM, what's in it for me. The attendee needs to know how they're going to benefit from this information. So learning objectives can be very helpful in guiding them as to what they're going to take away. And really, when you're building your objectives, it's the basis of your presentation. I always suggest using the SMART acronym, which is specific, measurable, action-oriented, reasonable, and time-bound when you're creating your learning objectives. I want to spend a few minutes here just covering each of the acronym letters as you build these objectives. So first, let's start with S in specific. This is all about focusing on the key elements. You really need to get to the meat of what you're sharing. One thing I always remember is less can be more when you're talking about content. And we're going to talk a little bit about reasonableness and time-bound in a second. But you have a wealth of knowledge in your head as an expert. There's no way that they can take all of that information that you know. So you need to be very specific in what you want to provide. You also want to be measurable, and that's where the M comes in. You want to include a measurement that can be observed or counted. So this is where it's in conjunction with action-oriented. You want to incorporate action verbs. You want to identify what action the learner must perform. So understanding a concept is kind of a weaker action-oriented verb. You really want to think about how they're going to use it. Should they be able to list it? Do they want to be able to explain it? Are they going to execute it? When you put this in action-oriented format, it really allows you as a presenter to think about how you want this information to come across. And as a learner, I can see, okay, I need to be able to understand this and list this out to somebody, or I need to be able to execute on this. We also want to be reasonable, and this is tied in with what we were talking about with specific in a lot of ways. It needs to be realistic and achievable. So let's say, for example, you've never spoken a word of French in your life, but you're going to Paris. So if you were going to go to a course on speaking French, let's just say you had an hour-long course you're going to attend, think about an hour-long session that you have, it's pretty unrealistic to think that you would be fluent after an hour. However, I think it's pretty realistic to expect to be able to say 2 or 3 key phrases that would help you navigate a trip to Paris. So you want to keep that in mind when you're finalizing the content you wish to share with your audience. And finally, the T is the time bound. Can you achieve what you want to in the time allotted? If you have 45 minutes, you really want to make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew. And this is where they all kind of come together, right? This harkens back to being specific. You really want to focus in on what they really have to know. And it has to be reasonable. You can't expect them to know every single item of a topic. They're coming in there to learn. What is it that the key items they have to have? All right, we talked about learning objectives, and I want to now talk about the actual slides themselves. And you've probably already been working on them. A few helpful hints, and I use this acronym up top as KISS. Keep it simple, silly. You've probably already noticed that the slides I've used so far have been pretty basic and sparse, not a lot of bullet points, and that's by design. I want to keep it simple so that you're retaining this information. First off, I truly believe it needs to be short, right? Now this is a little catchy, and it's a little kitschy, I should say. You know, I have a pair of shorts there, but I want you to remember this being short, right? You cannot overcrowd your PowerPoint. No attendee wants to see a bunch of sentences or a bunch of bullet points on a slide. You really want to limit bullet points on a slide, no more than 4 or 5 maximum. I wouldn't even put full sentences. You just want keywords up there. And in fact, if you can get away from using bullet points, I would. Use pictures whenever you're possible. There's a reason there's a saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you can use pictures or images in lieu of text, please do. Whenever you create slides, the purpose is to support what you're saying, not to list what you say verbatim. Pictures have a way of sticking with the learner where words on a screen simply can't. And then finally, you want to mix it up. You can't be stagnant on one point. You have to avoid talking about a point or a topic for more than 10 minutes. You lose your audience. There's evidence out there that supports the human mind can only withstand X amount of time on a single topic, usually about 10 minutes. And it's actually been shown that it's even getting less and less as we get older and older. Way to mix it up is to incorporate examples, videos, polls. So make sure every 10 minutes that you're switching things around a little bit and mixing it up when possible. So now that we talked a little bit about the slides, let's go over to some ground rules on the presentation. Really, this is just the basics. We got a few items that we see and teach to thousands of presenters every year. First and foremost, engage your audience. Adults like to be active in learning, so we want to engage them. A typical lecture, more often than not, is cognitive overload. Remember, you're an expert in this area. You know this content inside and out. They don't. You're going to present a lot of information to them. Ask them questions. Have them involved in the presentation when possible. In fact, if you can make it a conversation, even better. Not only are you actually getting to their level, you're also incorporating them and learning areas that they want to go down as opposed to what you've predetermined. I also believe storytelling can be a huge advantage when giving a presentation. Use stories, case studies, real-life examples and scenarios. Humans love a good story. Use that to your advantage. You have so much information and you have so much experience that you can share. I would be willing to bet every single person that listens to this has at least 1 or 2 stories related to the content that their audience members can benefit from. I also believe a few things that can help your presentation are simple, like doing a mic check before you even go and start addressing the audience. Make sure your slide advancer is working. It's these little simple things that will minimize your stress as you begin your presentation. Slow down. Speak clearly and have a conversation when possible. It's human nature when you're presenting to speed up. It's okay. You're going to be a little nervous. No worries about that. But be cognizant that you need to slow down and talk in a conversational tone whenever possible. Here's one that a lot of people don't realize, but is very important, is pausing. And we discussed earlier about engaging your audience and that they only have attention span for 10 minutes. Use that. Pause every 10 minutes. If you have a 40 to 45 minute presentation, that's 4 pauses right there. And when I say pause, ask an icebreaker type question or have a solo reflection. Maybe offer a video, but pause and break it up a little bit so that the audience has time to not only digest, but you're also able to ask questions of the audience to make sure that they're comprehending the information that you're sharing, and also that if you need to call an audible and change gears a little bit, you can. And finally, one of the most important bits of advice I can give to anybody who does a presentation: smile. This simple little action can be very effective. Not only does it help ease the audience, there's scientific evidence that shows smiling can help ease you. There's studies out there that show people who are in very stressful situations, they've tested those who are smiling or those who are in a neutral facial position. When smiling, they could actually last 2 to 3 times longer than in normal situations simply by smiling. It sounds cheesy, it sounds kitschy, but it works. Smile. It can go a long way. Now, this was a very quick, down and dirty presentation to just give you the basics of giving a presentation and putting together your slides, along with sharing some high-level demographics of our audience. If you would like more information, or if you would like to get some additional coaching, please contact one of our team members on the education team. Julie, Megan, and Emily are here to help you, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great presentation.